Hey there guys, it's me Alex, your bro-in-law. This is a video response for TheNerubin. Of course I usually pronounce people's names wrong, especially the channel's names. But anyways, the whole thing behind it was torture and role-playing games. And the comment I made on his video, which you should watch of course, I'll provide linkage, blah blah blah, which is what we always do. My comment, which is what I'm going to extrapolate on, is that the problem with torture and role-playing games is the conceit that the GM decides torture has to be. As we all know from the umpteenth number of reports that had to be given out to us to say how effective it is or how effective it isn't, a lot of people, based on their morals, choose the one that's appropriate to them. And most people have the idea that, oh, I don't like the concept of torture, therefore torture doesn't work, you know, versus the definition of torture, and how people actually can go about it. So basically what it boils down to is it's a very emotionally triggered word, you know, like rape, you know, stuff like that. And as soon as you hear that word, instead of going from stage 1, 2, 3, then 5, people immediately mount to 5 as like, oh, torture is cutting someone's arm off, and then asking for questions later while they're having blood loss and traumatic shock to the point where they can't speak. And that's not torture. That's just gore. That's just maiming and, ripping things apart. By the actual definition of torture, because I am a very big stickler for words, even though I like to abuse them myself. Mainly when people commit acts of torture, involves twisting, spraining, very rarely dislocating. So, a lot of these things, when you commit torture in terms of the what normal people would consider it, you're not actually hurting the person to the point where they're permanently disfigured. So it's the approach to doing so, and also on top of that, the ways people implement it. Because there's physical torture and there's mental torture as well. And mainly when people think about torture, they think about physical torture, because the literal definition of it is to twist. And you don't really twist brains too much when you do torture. So it's kind of a play on words on the interpretation. But anyways, there's the physical amount, which that one of course is the most unreliable. But there's mental torture, and that has been done with a lot more success in terms of if you want to go by whichever book is applicable to you of, oh, this status report says this worked, this didn't work. So, besides rambling too much, I gotta retrace my thoughts here. The entire problem with torture in RPGs is a lot of GMs crank it from, oh, the word, to cutting off legs and someone's head as a worst case scenario, cutting flesh, that kind of stuff. When really, torture's a lot slower because it's not dramatically, acceptable, really. To the point where it will take you like 20 minutes of interrogating and applying pressure to the right, points of the body, pressure points, get it? Or casting a spell that will make it to where they have a loud ringing in the ears for a certain level of time. People rarely mention about spell casting torture, which is pretty strange when it comes to the whole torture business. Which, by the way, is really interesting because even the D&D movie did brain torture in terms of, casting spells. So, I mean, that goes to show you how much, it really matters. The people who are interested in doing torture on the physical level to the point where they're like using bull whips and making lashings and stuff like that, those are the sick fucks. Those are the people who are just doing it because I guess they can. But definitely not the people. It's a warning sign on the person not to really play with them anymore, or at least to inform them that, hey, crank it down a little bit. But the actual act itself should not be a guaranteed auto fail or a oh yeah, you'll get information, but it's not the information you want. Basically the equivalent of an auto fail. It should actually have merit, and it should be approached with responsibly. And I think that's about it. And it can be done so based on some of the examples that I've given. Yeah, that's about it. Basically, it's the GM's fault a lot of the times, and it's the trigger words that cause people to really get their knickers in a britch. I said it wrong, by the way. But about this whole thing. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on it. For the GTA 5 example, that one's a bit extreme. And that goes to show about how the GM, aka the guy who designed the script for the game, wanted you to feel about torture versus its actual implications. That's my take on it, at least. So, have that answer for what you will. See you later.